here we have this baby with his wide little mouth open. We can see the breast tissue has made it all the way back to that soft palate that I was talking about. And we can see that the baby is draining the breast well. Here, we see that baby is far away from the breast. A lot of the areola is showing much more than before, right? And we can see that the baby's mouth is quite narrow and just on the tip of the nipple. And then the nipple is just sitting like right at the top of the hard palate. So one, that's going to cause a lot of pain for the breastfeeding parent. But two, you can see here that there's milk being left behind. The milk's not being drained properly. And the more the milk gets out, the more milk you will produce. So having an important latch means that your baby gets to be a lot more efficient while they're at the breast, but also you're not in pain. So it's really, really important to achieve that nice, big, deep latch. All right, so signs of a good attachment is that mouth that's open up really wide. We want more areola visible at the baby's nose than at the chin. And people always are like, what do they mean by this? Basically, I just want your baby's chin to be into the breast first and for them to be covering a good portion of the areola, right? So I don't want it like this where you can see the areola below the chin. I want it like this, right? Where baby is covering a good portion of the areola and I don't see much below the chin. Okay? So again, it's going to depend on the size of your areola. Just keep thinking you want to be having baby breastfeed, not nipple feed. Chin indenting the breast, allowing for that gap for the nose, right? So always we're leading chin first. Just like when we drink water, we're leading chin first. We're not leading nose first. Fully puffed cheeks. So while baby is feeding at the breast, we want to see that the baby has nice rounded cheeks. We don't want to see the cheeks collapsing. So we don't want to see this happening. Like, okay, that means that that breast tissue hasn't gone all the way back there, that it's kind of towards the front and the baby doesn't have a nice deep latch. And then we want to see a deep rhythmic sucking with swallowing. So we want to see that baby is maintaining some effort at the breast. Yes, baby is going to pause, 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 and then they'll get going again. I like to think of that pause, 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 just like when we eat, we put our fork down. We don't just go like this. Sometimes we do, and then we regret eating so fast. But generally, we put our fork down for a bit. Okay. So we want to see that nice rhythmical sucking and swallowing happening with the pause, 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 but then going back into that nice rhythm. Okay, I can't remember if any of you are having twins, but I'll look at that afterwards. But here we have this twin parent breastfeeding in a reclined, laid back position. So you can see that they have some pillows supporting their arms, not a twin breastfeeding pillow, but just some pillows supporting their arms. One baby is feeding here and the other baby is feeding there. For those of you that may be having twins, just remember that in those early days, like the twins are individuals, right? They're their own people. One is going to learn how to breastfeed sooner than the other. One is going to be easier to latch than the other, or one's going to be the better breastfeeder than the other. But we have to treat them, as they are individuals, and that we all develop at different times, right? So although they were born at the same time, right, from the same parent, their development happens at different stages. One might learn to roll over, at 4 months, and the other one learns how to roll over at 5 months. So, they develop differently. So we have to make sure that we, work with them in terms of their feeding development as well. Okay, so a couple of positions. So side lying hold, this was like one of my favorite ones to do when I was feeding my babies. One, it allowed me to recover from the birth and be restful. But also, I find that a lot of babies like this position because no one's really handling them because, we might be sore after giving birth, whether that be vaginally or from a C-section birth. We're a little bit sore. So who's to say that our baby is not a little bit sore as well? And maybe they don't want anyone touching them. So I like this position a lot when babies don't seem to want to be kind of held that way. There's the kind of standard crossover hold. So that's where, you're supporting baby's head, neck, and back, not hand on the head, but like this, right? And you're supporting your breast with the other hand. This is great for learning, because you can kind of aim where you're placing the breast and the baby's mouth. The one thing that I would say, like, I don't quite like about it too much is that, like, we don't really have a hand that's free, and it's nice to have a hand that's free, and I'll show you why in a second. Um, Football hold. So this is a popular hold, I would say, like, when people are first learning as well. So you can imagine you're, like, running down the field with a football. The baby kinda sits behind you. Usually, you use a pillow, like in the picture there, to support your arm. And then the other hand kind of helps guide the baby to the breast this way. A lot of times you can release the hand there. People will say, oh, what position is best for a C-section? It's really whatever's comfortable for you, but a lot of people like this one because the baby's not sitting anywhere near the incision. A lot of people with larger breasts like this position as well because they feel like they can see everything and the breast kind of gets propped on the baby a bit. Um, but in general, I mean, any one of these positions, it's whatever works for you and your baby. Your baby might like football hold on one side and crossover hold on the other side, and they won't do anything else there. All right, there's a little just to make you smile. And then we have cradle hold. I did this one a lot where, you maybe have a little pillow and sometimes you don't even need to have one if you're leaning back. But the thing that I liked about this position was like it gave you a hand that was free. So after you latched on baby, right? Baby's being supported through their shoulder blades with your arm here. But then I had this hand where I could feed myself. Well, my partner would come and cut up little pieces of food for me to be able to feed myself. But it also like allowed me to text, somebody and say, oh, look at my cute baby, blah, 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 right? While I was feeding my baby. So I was either feeding myself or like socializing. And then as I got, other babies that came in, like I had toddlers around, then I had a free hand to help a toddler while I was breastfeeding the baby. Koala hold. So this hold is nice for either that baby that's super, super sleepy and kind of just falls asleep as soon as they latch onto the breast. And that's because the baby's kind of sitting upright to feed, right? So for that sleepy baby, it can be good. Or for a baby that's like jaws quite tight, it can be good because they can kind of relax back into your hand that way. And then we have the back lying hold, which we saw with that twin mama before. So you're very, very reclined. You can put your feet up and you can kind of use gravity there to help you feed baby. This can also be good if you have a very fast flow, but it's in general just quite a comfortable position to use. Okay, if the time comes and you forget what to do, we've got you covered with a demonstration video of positions for optimal feeding on our Instagram page. All right, skin to skin. I've mentioned it a few times. I've mentioned why it's important, but let's go into a little bit more detail on why it's important. So it gets feeding off to a great start. Here we have this beautiful baby with their nice wide latch, and you can even see that their little lips are flared as well. So beautiful latch going on there. But skin to skin, it can help to regulate baby's heart rate, their temperature, their breathing, and their blood sugar levels. So all of this is going to be assessed by your midwife or your doctor or the nurses after baby has been born, right? They're going to have all of these things checked somewhat regularly after they've been born. So when we keep our babies skin to skin with us, whether that be with our partner or with us, right, it will help stabilize all of these important things in baby. It can also reduce the stress levels for both the parent and the baby. All right. And there's a lot of research to support why it's really important for the partner to also do it. It helps baby like bond with that partner, the other caregiver, and say, you know what, I know that I'm safe and I'm secure in your arms. It also releases endorphins. So putting your baby skin to skin makes you feel happy. So that's a good thing. And it stimulates the breastfeeding instinct and gets feeding off to a great start. So a lot of times when baby is born, they're brought to your chest and they remain there skin to skin. Maybe they have a little break after being born and then they start to root and kind of look for the breast. Okay. So for people that are having a hard time latching baby or have a very sleepy baby, I'll say, okay, let's do more skin to skin. Like when before you realize, like your baby's waking up or before you realize that your baby might be hungry, like undress them, put them skin to skin, and let's see what happens, right? Let's get them out of that wrap and let's see what happens. But skin to skin is just so important to do as much as possible in those early days and early weeks as baby is learning how to breastfeed and as your relationship with your baby is developing. Okay, so here we're at our first question period. So we're going to open up the chat and you can ask me any questions on how breastfeeding works, how to tell if your baby is hungry, latching, positions, and skin to skin. So type your questions in for the next couple of minutes, and then I will answer them after that. I'm going to repeat the questions out loud so that everybody can learn from the questions that are being asked, because oftentimes, somebody asks a question that you didn't even realize you had, but that was a great question to ask, right? Yeah, another minute, and then I'll start answering your questions. All right, let's start answering some questions here now. Go scroll up here. Okay, Anna's saying, I didn't get any slides from my previous class. How can I get it? Can you email the Baby Academy, please, Anna, and ask them to send you a copy of that? All right. Do babies always latch from the bottom? Sorry, this question is from Equiviance. Sorry if I didn't say that properly, but do babies always latch on from the bottom? Do you mean like the bottom of the breast, like from down here? Yeah, typically. So typically they'll drive with their chin first. Now, it doesn't matter. Like here, they're coming from the bottom of the breast. Here, they're latching onto the side of the breast, right? So here they're latching to the bottom. Like it just kind of depends what position they're on, but their chin is always leading the way. But yeah, they might be nursing on one side of the breast and then from the bottom of the breast. Like it just really depends on the position you're using. Okay, Lori said if prolactin is best at night, then if baby starts to sleep through the night, is it still important to pump and hand express during the night? So during the early bits of baby's life, Lori, baby probably won't be sleeping through the night. They'll probably still be waking. Babies will maybe start to like take longer stretches at night. And then I would say like you just really have to monitor your breasts and make sure that they're not getting too full or uncomfortable. But I don't think you'll have to worry about that for a while. Okay, and then I have a question from Nimrutha. When do you know milk has started coming in? After the colostrum production. So interestingly, colostrum kind of phases out over the first week or so. So at 16 weeks gestation, so most of you today are past 16 weeks, you're capable of producing colostrum for your baby, and you will produce colostrum for your baby until after the placenta is born. When the placenta is born, prolactin starts to kind of flood through the system. And then over the next couple of days, the milk supply starts to build. So in the first day or so, you might be making like, I don't know, a couple of mils or, some drops of colostrum. But then, come to day, 2.5-ish, you 3, you're maybe making this much per feed for your baby. So the milk starts to like quickly build And then by day 5, you might be making like this much milk per feed. So you're going from drops to like this within like 5 days. So it exponentially grows quite quickly. And sometimes, you might feel like a fullness in your breast or a firmness in your breast when that happens. Um, but sometimes people don't notice it at all because their babies are feeding and taking all the milk out, right? Um, Okay, Julia, if we don't get a great latch initially, would you recommend breaking the latch immediately and starting over? Yeah, Julia, I would. I would break the latch by kind of like protecting myself. So, like, going in through the baby's corner of their mouth and like kind of wrapping my finger around my nipple to protect myself. Get baby off and then redo the latch because, you don't want to be in pain. You could get like, yeah, you could cause pain and then you could maybe not want to breastfeed the next session. So it's better just to like take the baby off and redo the latch. Polar has asked, how soon after birth can you try to breastfeed? Some babies want to breastfeed right away. So there's not really a time. If your baby wants to do it, then let them do it. Lizette says, when you say skin to skin, does that mean no shirt for mama and baby? Correct. No shirt for mama and baby. So, and if you're worried about, your baby being warm enough, your body will actually help regulate baby's temperature. And then you can always pull like a little blanket up, like over underneath their armpits, for the two of you to snuggle under together. But your temperature and baby's temperature tend to meet up. Okay. All right. Audrey has said, as a lactation consultant, do you typically recommend using products like Boppy, or Breast Friend for better positioning, or do you suggest on not using it? So she's asking about breastfeeding pillows and whether or not I recommend them. So if you like to use one, use it. But like lots of times, just like a pillow, like this, that's kind of laying around your house is more than all you need, right? Also, reclining means that you don't really need a pillow at all. You have gravity kind of helping you keep baby on the breast. So, I don't really say you have to go out and buy one at all. But if you find you like it, then great. Sarah, how often do you need to breastfeed? You need to breastfeed your baby around the clock throughout that 24 hours. And typically newborns will feed 8 or more times a day. So like I can remember instances where my newborn fed 15 times in 24 hours and then another day 7 or 8, like they're going to kind of like feed as they need, but typically they will feed about 8 or more times a day. Nimrutha, ways to increase milk supply. So best way is to keep putting that baby on the breast, baby on the breast, baby on the breast. The more stimulation, the more you ask your breast to make milk, the more milk will be created. Naomi, how soon does breast milk supply come in after a C-section? It depends. Everybody's different. I might feel like a fullness in my breast on day 2 or 3, and then some people still producing tons of milk for their baby. Sarah's asked, I'm delivering early at 36 weeks. Can I collect milk before going for delivery? Typically, we say 37 weeks and beyond, you can do that. I'm going to teach you about antenatal hand expression of milk, but I would check with your doctor on that one or midwife. Antonia, are there any positions not recommended after a C-section? No, Antonia, you can use any position that feels comfortable for you. So don't worry about this one should be for this and that one should be for this. It's whatever works for you. Okay. Jackway says, what is a good feeding frequency? What is a good amount of feeding? So a feeding frequency, like I said, of 8 or more times a day in 24 hours. And the amount is going to fluctuate as the day goes on and as baby gets a little bit older. So we really want to look at their weight gain. We want to look at their P's and Poo's. And if you want to learn more about that during the ultimate breastfeeding class, that would be great for you. Carolina, about pumping and breastfeeding, we'll talk about that in the ultimate breastfeeding class. Diana has asked, if you're planning to exclusively breastfeed, is it a good idea to pump milk and keep it in the freezer? I always had a few bags in the freezer, but like I didn't have one of those massive freezer stashes where like, a deep freezer is full of milk. I had a few bags just in case. Sadra, do we need to start hand expressing before delivery? I'm going to talk about that after the break. How to know baby is getting enough milk um, from mom. You're going to want to tune into the ultimate breastfeeding class for that. Um, Lexus, is there any difference for big breasted feeding and small breasted feeding? No, the difference is how often you stimulate the breast. Is it necessary to massage my breast when pregnant to help produce milk? Not necessarily. No. Okay. And Ratuja has said, is there a way to know if we have enough milk or should we change sides? So my rule of thumb is you always offer both sides to baby at each feed and allow them the right to refuse. Okay. Mariah said, any tips for inverted nipples? I'm 31 weeks and have recently started producing colostrum. However, I'm not sure baby will be able to get a good latch. So maybe not everybody knows what an inverted nipple is out there. So we have these nipples that are kind of erect and stick out. We have kind of shorter nipples like so. And then we have flat nipples like so. And then we have inverted nipples where it kind of collapses into the breast tissue. So a lot of inverted nipples aren't truly inverted. You can kind of like stimulate them and get them to come out a little bit, either through pumping or just manual stimulation. If you can't, that's fine. What you're going to do is you're going to make kind of like almost like your breast tissue. You're going to make it into almost like a nipple, right? So your breast is like this. You're going to almost make it into a nipple so that the baby gets up and over like this. So, yeah, it might be a bit more challenging at first, but it certainly does not mean that you cannot, um, that you cannot, you know, breastfeed your baby. Okay. Okay. Okay, Carolina says, I was informed that pumping in the morning, that milk should be given in the morning because the hormones you produce aren't the same as night. So your breast milk does change throughout the day. Nighttime milk is different than morning milk, is different than, Thursday's milk is different than Monday's milk, but breast milk is breast milk, right? So I I always encourage my clients that if you have breast milk in your freezer and you need to give your baby a bottle, don't worry about what time you pumped that bottle at. All right. Tatiana, oh, sorry. Yeah, Tatiana. How often should you be breastfeeding after birth? Every hour, 2 hours? Most people will say every 2 to 3 hours. That will make sure that you get in a minimum of 8 feeds in 24 hours. Jessica has asked, do you need to have formula in the first few days to compensate for the little milk you make in the beginning? No. So it's really interesting. Your baby is born with a really teeny, teeny, tiny, tiny tummy. And over the week, their teeny, tiny tummy becomes a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. Okay. So the teeny, tiny tummy grows quite a bit in that first week of life. So in the beginning, that's really kind of all they can hold. They can only hold a small amount on that day 1 or 2, and then their tummy becomes a bit bigger and becomes a bit bigger and hold a bit more. So interestingly, it's like they're born to only have that small amount on that first day or two. All right, so let's take a look at the time. Let's meet back here at 25 past the hour. So that gives you a little bit of time to go stretch and grab a quick snack. And during your break, you can enter our competition. And to enter, simply share on Instagram a story of you educating yourselves today with us and tagging Haka ANZ and Haka USA and the Baby Academy US to be in a chance to win $100 Haka voucher. So Haka NZ, Haka USA, and the Baby Academy US. All right. So let's meet back here at 25 past the hour and we will continue our class.